the fifth session in the series. So if you go to the next slide, basically this is this series. This particular session is talking about. It will give you a walkthrough of the automation cloud. Automation cloud itself, and also talk about the new admin experience that's available as part of automation cloud, and you'll learn more about the new admin interface, as well as the various controls that are available with which you can manage the automation cloud instance. And of course, we'll also dive a little bit deeper into the license allocation across admins, tenants, and the various licensing options that are available. And for today's session, we have two wonderful speakers, both from our product team, Riza Bruguera and Viorela Preda. So both are from Romania, and they are our product experts. So you will be getting the first-hand information from the people who are actually creating these wonderful experiences in Automation Cloud. So over to you, Riza. You can take it off.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you all for joining. Let's get it started. To set a bit the context, today we're gonna talk about the cloud admin experience, and I'm going to start with a quick walkthrough of the new admin UX. Then we're gonna go through some best practices and recommendations when setting up your organization. Coming up are gonna be some information, like some sneak peek on what we're thinking to do further to expand the capabilities for the admins. And we're gonna finish with a deep dive in licensing, as we know this is a topic of interest for a lot of people. So let's get this going. Starting with our first topic, the quick walkthrough. I'm sure most of you are already familiar, at least a bit, with the admin experience in cloud, but I wanted to do a quick walkthrough of the new admin experience that we introduced last year, because for a while we've kept both experiences in parallel to give you folks time to accommodate with the new UI. But now, coming 23.4, we're gonna deprecate the old admin experience, and we're gonna focus on enriching and adding more capabilities to the new one. So let's explore it a bit together and see how you can orient yourself in this new admin experience. So I'm gonna switch 1 second. Okay. So what is the thing with the new admin experience? So if we're looking at the old one, we're seeing we have everything clubbed here on the left side, and we're basically seeing a mix of the capabilities that you have for org level along with your tenants. Moreover, the tenant admin space is not well represented at all here, and we've realized that. And as we want to introduce more and more things here, we thought that a change is needed to scale this experience further. So when we're switching to the new admin experience, we're going to find this navigation on the left, which if you probably are familiar with Orchestrator, is a similar metaphor. So similarly, as in Orchestrator, you have your tenant context, and when you're at the tenant level, you have all the capabilities around related to the tenant. And then you can navigate on the left-hand side to the folders and have the folders specific capabilities. In a similar fashion, here in admin, at the top, you'll find the org context. So this is the organization name. And on the right-hand side, you'll see all the functionality related to org administration. Then on the left is your navigation panel. So as you move through this, you will be able to navigate in the tenant admin space for each of the tenants. Okay, so this is just in terms of navigation. Now, at the org level, as I was saying, you're finding your the capabilities that are global, that apply to your entire organization. So these are things like your accounts and groups. Here is where you do your user management. You can create your robot accounts that I'll mention shortly, and you can create your groups. These are shared across all tenants. Similarly, you're gonna find information about licensing because again, licensing, you have a license for your entire org, and here you can have an overview of everything that is available for your organization. I won't go into many details on each of the sections. For licensing, Vio will explain in detail what is happening and what are the best practices there. For security, just briefly, just to see what are the options. I'm pretty sure if you participated in the security webinar that we had previously, that was covered more thoroughly, but just for orientation, this is the part where you can apply some security general settings that apply to your entire org. Things as how can your user sign in? If you have trusted IPs, you can add these IP restrictions here, some configurations around session policy, and about the encryption type for your data. So all of these things are global for your entire organization. One new addition that will link to something that I'm going to present later on is something that you're gonna find here in the settings in the advanced section, where you'll find some new controls about the UI customization for your non-admin users. So what is the experience for a non-admin user when they access the cloud portal? And I'll show that shortly. I just wanted to know where it is, you to know where it is. Okay, then when we progress to the tenant space, here, everything that, so you navigate to the tenant, everything you see on the right-hand side is related to that tenant. And so you can see what are all the services that you have in your tenant. If you start expanding your automation program and you want to roll out to a certain tenant more and more services, you can easily do that from here if you haven't added them from the beginning. And also you have some controls for these services. So you have shortcuts for each service to go to where it applies to configure the license allocation, and also shortcuts to the interface where the access management is done for each service. So you can access them easily from this interface. The tags one, not sure how many of you are using or you're familiar with. It's a functionality we've released in 23.4, allowing you to tag different objects, especially in Orchestrator, but also studio packages and action center actions. And we're working to add more things that you can add tags on them so you can categorize things and find them easier. And this interface here is the admin surface for this, which allows you a global view to see what are all the labels and all the properties in your organization, and allow you to add new ones and also remove and make sure you take out the clutter if too many things gather that you're not using anymore. In terms of VPN gateway, this is related to cloud robots, which was again covered in another session. If you haven't seen that, I would invite you to do so. And last but not least, some settings, general settings about the tenant. Okay. So this was just like a short orientation for the new admin. Now, going back to the presentation, let's continue by discussing some best practices. If the PowerPoint collaborates. Thank you, PowerPoint. Okay, so some things that it's good to keep in mind when you're setting up your cloud organization. And we're gonna talk about three main areas. They don't necessarily need to happen in this exact order, but we think of them as three important areas that you should consider. So one is how to define your org structure in terms of how to create your tenants and separate the information there. And also a few recommendations about the orchestrator folder structure, because these two things are gonna dictate then a lot of behaviors moving forward. Then we're gonna discuss a bit about the automation cloud groups and how to best leverage them to manage things easier in automation cloud. And last but not least, how to set up for success the users that you're adding to your organization to start using UiPath. Okay, so let's start with the tenant structure. So to just create your tenant, it's easy, right? You go to that admin surface, you click a plus and you fill in some information. But there are some things that you should consider. And one of the things that we highly recommend is to separate your pre-production and production environments. This would typically mean that you have like a dev, a test, and a production environment. Some people have more, also like a UAT environment, or have the dev test combined in only one environment. It depends on the size of the organization and your stage, but at least to have two different environments, so your production data is separating, then you can have a dev environment where you can experiment on. Moreover, when you create first your organization, you are selecting a region for your organization data. Let's say your company is in US and you're selecting US. If all your operations are conducted in US, then most likely you'll also want all your tenants to be in the US. But if you're expanding further, and let's say you have operations in US and in Europe, when creating, it's recommended for your production data, if you have data sovereignty requirements, to make sure you create the regions in the tenants in the region where you have the operation. So in this way, you ensure the data always stays in that region. Another thing that you can leverage here with the tenant structure is the option to create a canary tenant to stay ahead of upcoming changes. What does that mean? It means that when you create a tenant, you are able to also apply this property to it. This would mean that this tenant will receive updates earlier than the rest of the tenants. So this allows you basically two things. One is to see faster what are the new things that we're coming up with and to test them, but also to act as an alarm, let's say, if any of the changes that we're pushing are interfering with your current automations or operations. So these are the three things to keep in mind regarding the tenant structure. And now a few things about the orchestrator folder structure. So in each of the tenants, you would have an orchestrator service. Depending on when you've started with UiPath, you might be using modern folders or classic folders. As you probably seen the announcements that we've made with 23.4, we're deprecating the classic folders. Therefore, I wanted to explain some best practices around the modern folders. So these folders would help you to granularly manage access for the automation resources within a tenant. And the recommendation would be to use the root folders to structure your different divisions, departments, or business units, and then use the subfolders to isolate the automations and the resources available in each. And with this being said, let's move a bit to the actual interface to see what I'm talking about. So when you're creating the tenant, this would be the place where you'll make sure you put it in the right region, and this is the option to use it as a canary environment. In terms of the the orchestrator folders, something that the thing that I was mentioning would be a structure that would look as follows. So let's say I want to roll out my automation program in the finance, HR, logistics, and procurement departments, and I have dedicated automations for each of these departments. So I don't want my users in finance to be able to run the logistics automations and the other way around. For this, I would create different root folders. And again, here I have a more complicated structure. In HR, I would have two teams, payroll and recruiting. And in payroll, I would have my first automation and my second automation as the leaves of these folders. If there are automations that I want them to be run by all the users in my organization, then it's enough to have a shared folder where I have the automations as leaves, and I would give access to all users to this shared folder. Okay, now at this point, so I created the tenant structure and the folder structure. Moving forward, okay, but now I just have a structure. I need to add people here and give them access. Before actually adding people, we recommend to think about how you want to manage access in your organization. And we recommend to do so by leveraging the groups. So before doing anything, you should think what are the different levels of access you want to have in your organization for the products that you're planning to use, and only then to go and to create that group structure that reflects it. What does that mean? So in my example, I had like a finance department, a HR department. If I want these people to have access to different things, it would make sense to create a finance group and an HR group and so forth. We recommend doing this because you'll be able to then give access in the various services that you're using to these groups, and you're going to do that just once. And then the only thing you need to do is to add the users to those groups, and they'll inherit the access from the group. And not just that, but it will also simplify the license management for those of you who started using user licensing. Again, a topic that will be further explained by my colleague Vio shortly. So what would you do here? In this case, I would go and create a finance group. For my finance users, I don't have to add users right now. I'll add it, and I will be prompted if I want to also create a license allocation rule. My users in finance are only going to be using automations, not creating automations. Therefore, I want to create a rule so that these users in finance will get an attended license. Once I do that, I will just simply, so I created the group. Now I'll just give access in whatever tenant I want to give them access. I have this demo tenant. So I'll be able basically to go to orchestrator and make sure that I give the right access. For example, in this case, I will make some setup at tenant level. I'm not going into that in the interest of time, but I will just like go and say, okay, I want finance group, my finance users group to have, let's do this, to have the automation user role here. I have an error here. I think I already added it. Just wanted it to demo it a bit. And I can do the same for all the other things. But the beauty with the groups is that I do this once for the groups, but afterwards, all the users will inherit that access. Okay. Now this is the last part for this. Okay, I created all this structure. Now I need to add my users and set them up for success. And this last part will become much easier if I leverage groups previously. So I'll just have to basically go and invite. I will go here. If we are not using directory integration, which is something that we're not going to cover in this series, but was covered previously, I'll just have to invite my users. I already invited myself here, and make sure that I add here the users, the employees in the finance. And I'll just do that now. I will add it here, and let me try to see if I can show this. I have another window where I'm showing you what's happening. So if I am the end user now, I'll see this, when I sign in, I'll see this organization. When I log into it, I will already have the access and the licenses and the different homepage experience, because I'm not an admin, but I am a business user. So I would, this is a blank state because I don't have any automations on this account, but basically here I'll be able to see my automation, my job history, my actions, and I will only see the things that I've been given access to. For example, you'll see that I have no apps service here. And the reason that I have no app service here is because, one second, share. Okay, you will see that here in the settings, in the advanced one, I disabled apps for the non-admin users. So basically, once I create this structure and I make sure that the setup is correct, managing the users further is way easier. It requires a bit more, I don't know why the presentation is not showing up. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry for this. the PowerPoint just crashed. It happens.
I can quickly share, Raisa, if you need.
It recovered just now. Thank you. Okay, so let's just go back to the slide where we've been at. Come on. Apologies. Okay, so picking up from where I left, because I did all the setup in the beginning, then when I move forward and another user comes in a department, I just have to add it there and it will inherit the access and the licenses based on the work that I've done previously. One last mention is that when using unattended automations for these, we're recommending you to create the robot accounts. That's pretty easy. You can do that from the admin interface, and then you just give them access just like you do for any other user account. Okay, so that was it with the tips and tricks. Now, like just for 1 minute, I'll give you a sneak peek of what we're planning to do in Automation Cloud Admin as new things. So one thing we're investigating is to be able to have more granular roles for administrators. So as you've seen, as an administrator in Automation Cloud, I am able to do their everything. For larger organizations, sometimes it makes sense to have more granular roles. Maybe you want to have just one person who's handling licenses and to be able to make that the license admin, but not be able to touch other areas of the admin, or someone just managing users and groups. Another thing we're considering is the tenant admin role. We're discussing internally now about this. So that was the plan actually all along since we introduced this new admin experience. The reason that we tried to create that separate space for the tenant admin is to further add this tenant admin role, such that if I'm the admin for a tenant, I have access only to that tenant functionality. I cannot touch anything of the org functionality, nor for the tenants that I'm not an admin of. The third point, this would be a long journey, but I think we need to embark on it. The centralized access management. As you've seen, when I create a group or I have a user, we gather all the shortcuts there, so you can go and each and every service to set up access, but that's for sure not ideal. So what this item refers to is the ability to offer you a centralized experience at the tenant level, where you'll be able for a user or for a group to set up access across all the services in that tenant from one central place. And last but not least, more customization options for you so that you can offer even more interesting experiences for your end users. So I was showing you how as an end user, I'll have like a different homepage view than an admin, and the admin is able to control several things there. That was just an MVP to see how that goes, but the plan is to add more options for customization so that you can have more and more control on what is the experience for your end users joining the org. And with this, I'll pass it to my colleague for the licensing deep dive.
Thank you, Raisa. Hello, everyone. I'm Viorela, the product manager for licensing. Raisa, can you please stop sharing so I can play around with the demo? Thank you. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen. And
Yes.
I wanted to give you a few topics, let's say, then that we can deep dive. And these are basically the type of license management that we have within our platform, especially Automation Cloud and Automation Suite. We'll focus on the Automation Cloud right now. Before that, I wanted to show you here in the documentation, so it's public, the different types of plans. We have from community to different types of trial, pro, enterprise, and so on. So I have here in admin, like Raisa showed, in licenses page currently, and usually when you first sign up, you would get the free plan. There are multiple options to self-serve for pro trial, for example. or for direct buy, so you could buy directly from here, or if you already discussed with someone, sales representative, you could just enter a license key, and I will quickly do this so we can have more licenses available. Okay, so my license was activated and now I can see the different plan. This is the enterprise plan, my expiry, and everything that I purchased, basically. Now, going back to the presentation, we'll start with user licensing and what is user licensing. These are the types of licenses needed in order for a human user, like a user that has an email usually assigned, to do their work, either to run automations or to develop automations or do other kinds of operations that requires a user assistance in a way. The prerequisites for what we are calling user licensing are mostly related to those products that are managed also in Orchestrator. So if you are using Attended or Automation Developer, meaning that you would need a robot somehow in Orchestrator in order to make use of the user license management capability. SSO, single sign-on, needs to be enforced and Orchestrator to use modern folders. I know there is an initiative from the Orchestrator team to remove the classic folders. So this is quite important to mention, as this is what the difference, sorry, when you don't use, no, I'm not okay. When you don't use modern folders and you go to classic folders, user license management will be disabled. In my organization right now, it's enabled, and by default, it is enabled. So if you are moving from classic to modern, you should enable this one here. By enabling it, you will see this type of menu here in the licenses page, meaning that you can, for user licenses that are all listed here, you can either allocate to groups like Raisa showed before from the accounts and groups page, or directly from here. If you have a custom group, you could edit and say, okay, I want let me see, I want the automation users group to have the Attended license or whatever other license you need. But if you have specific users that you want them to have a specific license, no matter what, you can add the license from here, allocate directly to users, and I want Raresh to have citizen developer. The users need to be, of course, invited in the organization. And moreover, for example, if you do the group allocation, and for example, in your automation users or any other group, you could have any other group, custom group created. If you have a rule that all these users need to have Attended license, once they sign in, they will acquire this license, and you could easily from this menu, I'll see if I have time to also sign in the assistant, but from this menu, you'll see the list of users that have acquired the license from this specific group. For now, acquire, what I called acquire, means that the user signed in the specific product, either in the assistant or maybe they signed in automation cloud here and they went to action center or whatever other service that has this license. Now, robot licensing. When what we call robot licensing mostly refers to unattended automation. And what is this? is unattended automation doesn't require any human interaction at execution. And we usually refer to these robot licenses as runtimes because they are basically the machine capacity to run processes simultaneously. And I'm gonna show you quickly how to set it up. The licenses available right now are, for this case, what we call robot licenses, are unattended test or testing robot as it was called, and unattended non-production. Now, like Raisa mentioned in her presentation, in order to set up an unattended robot license or an unattended robot license type, it's best to set up a robot account. This is different from a user account as it doesn't require basically for you to create a fake email to an unattended robot that will run once a month or once a week, whatever. You just create it here. Bio unattended, and give it get the right permissions via group memberships or whatever. Go to organization. You now have a robot account that you can leverage in your unattended automation. Now, in order to consume the unattended robot licenses, you would first need to allocate licenses on tenants. For example, for this finance tenant, I want to allocate, I don't know, 3 unattended, 1 non-production, and 1 testing, right? On the orchestrator service, because this is where they are managed, basically. Now, in order to consume these unattended robot licenses, the setup then is in orchestrator. Like I said, a runtime, what we call the runtime or an unattended license, is the capacity of the machine. So for example, I have this machine here. Let's say I just added it. And here is where I actually license it. I will put 3 production unattended licenses on this machine. And like it says here, it's the maximum number of jobs that this machine can execute in the same time. So you need to think, if I have some unattended automations and I schedule them, for example, to run last day of the month, right? I would need 3 slots available. So this is why you would need to think about the maximum concurrency. Now, for the usage, these are actually used. So you will see them here as 3 out of 3 when the machine is connected to orchestrator. I won't go into detail on how to connect the machine. It's in the documentation. But basically, it will require you to connect it via the robot installed on your machine using a client ID and secret, or the machine key based on the configuration you have. Speaking of unattended, my next slide refers to consumption licensing, and I'm jumping to it because we also have what we call cloud robots, serverless MVM, and cloud robots VM are basically unattended robots that we discussed earlier, but hosted by us, by UiPath, meaning that in order to make use of them, you would need to add a cloud robot VM machine, right? And you don't need to install the robot on your laptops or other VMs, right? We install the robot for you. In order to basically consume and make use of these hosted robots, we have a license that it's called robot units. This is a consumption license, right? And once you have robot units on your license page, so available in your organization, you can then consume them by either serverless or VM cloud robots. For automation cloud VM, which as I told you, think about them as unattended, hosted by UiPath. As you can see here, the robot units, if I, depending on the number of VMs that I set in this machine pools, it will consume, it will reserve some robot units per month. So you can run multiple automations, unlimited, let's call them automations, with the same costs based on the machine size. For example, if I choose a standard machine, it will be 6K robot units. But depending on the size, we will see that they are already marked as consumed and I can run my automations. I will leave the page. For serverless, the consumption is a bit different as these are automations that run on Linux, as we call them, and these are automations that don't require UI interaction. So basically, think about them as API automations, right? They are very fast. They will run in a few minutes, right? To move data from, I don't know, a system to another via API. So this is why the consumption of robot units is per minute, as it can show, as it's shown here, based on the machine size that you put. Next, in terms of consumption, we have introduced AI units. I'm not sure how many of you has used our AI services, but these are the services that are now able to consume these AI units. So a single license for all these services: document understanding, AI center, task mining, and communications mining is our latest AI product. And the usage for these AI units currently, it's at organization level. This means that, let me see here in robots and services, I can see here AI units, and I can consume from this pool from DU that is in finance and in test tenants, for example. Now, service licenses are the, let's say, the least complicated of them all, as they don't really require much configuration. But in order for me to access a service, I would need to have a certain license. For example, let me see, in this tenant, if I would want to add some services, I can only see communications mining. I don't have a license for Automation Hub, so I cannot enable it. For example, let me go back. And this is why we have this concept only for enterprise plans, that you can try these services before purchasing them. So before they end up in this page here, for you to be able to enable it, I would start a trial for Automation Hub, for example. And within the same organization, right, I can go to my tenant and enable it on my tenants. The same for, as you've seen here, currently we have available Automation Hub, Insights and Process Mining, more services to come, including a cloud robots trial, meaning that you will, as an enterprise customer, you will be able to have some robot units for 60 days and to try out the cloud robots. And I think this is it from my side. I will wait for the questions.
I think you have already some questions on the chat.
Yeah, looking. will we be able to get the Star Pro trial option after it expires after using it once? I think for now you can. I need to ask the marketing team what's the limit, but I think for now you can. Then Arpan, in the free plan, we do not have automation developer licenses. Yes, that is true. You will not be able to use Studio in free plan because you only have the Automation Express license. I don't have it in my enterprise account right now, but I'm gonna give this link to you, this documentation link, for you to see the difference between them. And here, I hope I'm still sharing, but here you can see a plans comparison and to see what kind of licenses each plan has. But Automation Express only has access to Studio X and Studio Web.
Guys, feel free to unmute and ask questions in case you haven't put your questions in yet.
I'm not sure, Raisa, if you got the chances where the question part, someone put this, I don't know, suggestion on the forum.
Okay.
So this is for you. I saved it.
Yeah, I'm reading.
Andy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can just give a brief. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we struggled with a couple of times, and I was
Okay.
helping someone to figure out an API problem, and the person's token had expired, and he was looking around for the API access keys, and we had to do some searching around, despite the fact that we have used it before. So if we are going to be administering something, or largely if we are going to access the API credentials to be given to someone, then they should be kind of easily accessible with a logo or with kind of a glyph like that you already have, right? I
So
think
you imagine it as more visible and taken out
correct,
from the menu.
correct,
Mhm.
correct, because it isn't intuitive. That people have to go looking at each of those ellipses to see where the API keys are, and that glyph at the top would help.
It was here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you
It
for the
was there
feedback.
before, so
Yeah.
Good feedback.
Take it up with design team.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Other questions?
Any questions? Just unmute yourself. Anything you want to share? If not a question.
I
Andy.
have another question. Sorry,
Yep.
that this has got to do with asset management, right? And I don't know if this is, you consider this to be part of orchestrator administration or more of folder administrator functionality, but when we create assets, we have the ability to override them from global values to user and user machine combinations, right? What happens if there are large number of named users for whom those assets must be overridden? For example, if I do if I slide that global value back, then you add that add asset value. Now the named user is mandatory. I cannot look for groups in there, right? So what happens if we have large number of users for whom we have to sort of override these assets? And the second is, wouldn't it be easier to have it kind of overridden just by machine names just in case you are using service robots, a large number of service robots to kind of use these assets?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If I have 100 service robots that are reading, say, scanned PDFs, for example, right? And each of these robots are working from a different group. and they have to upload the data to a different system. And let's say that we have configured the name of the system or the storage bucket as an asset, right? If we have, say, 10 different robots and each of them are using a different machine template, then if we could divide these assets based on the machine templates that they're using, instead of limiting them just to users, wouldn't that be helpful for large scale installations? Because I don't know how to scale this right now. We can't upload any kind of file to assign it to a large group of users because you have made named users mandatory. But I would want it to be a little more generic.
So would you, I will take it with our colleagues from Orchestrator, as it's not exactly our area, but just to better understand. So if you would be able to do it per group, would it help you, or is the ask different?
It would be, groups for, named users. And then a slight deviation of that is if we are using robot service accounts, would it be easier to group them by machine templates, right? I'm just trying to, because let's say that I have a machine template that runs on Linux machines, and then I have a machine template that runs on Windows machines. I have two different machine templates. Obviously, any parameters that I have to configure for Linux is different from Windows. And if I configure those as assets, it would be easier.
But you would use the same robot account for both?
No, those robot accounts would be, a group of robot accounts would be assigned to the Linux machine template. A group of robot accounts would be assigned to Windows. So I'm thinking.
So then wouldn't it be also per group? For the group?
Yeah, if we can do that, that's good. I'm assuming we can do that because this interface doesn't allow me to search for groups.
No,
so
no, you cannot now. So for now, you cannot do it for sure. I'm just like trying to see if like doing the group thing would help in both cases, or if
correct. If we can do that by groups, and it can cater to robot service accounts as well as named user accounts, we could scale this idea. Otherwise, right now, I don't have a way to scale this.
So any automation, any process running on those machines, let's say, if we were to set it per machine, like you said, would, of course, that has this asset set up, would use the same value, you're saying?
Correct. That the same asset would have different values based on what group it is, right?
Based on them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to like arrive at. Because I've used this, it's very useful. I'm actually coming out with the kind of a video to show how this is used, but it just made me think, how do we scale this?
It's difficult to scale.
Correct. I mean, even if you want to do it at the named user level, there is no way for me to upload a file or saying, okay, this is the group of users and this is the asset, and I cannot do that in some
users.
Yeah, right. I mean, imagine doing this for 50 users. I don't think it's going to scale.
Yeah.
I see.
And
thank you for the feedback. We're going to pass it to our colleagues on Orchestrator. And so for now, you cannot add groups for sure. That we know. But,
you could leave us your contact so we can ask our colleagues to contact you in case they want to know more about your use case.
The use case.
Maybe our colleagues have your contact already. If you don't want to say
I think they
chat.
do. And if the reason I brought this up is based on our background, because these things are limited to Orchestrator admin functionality. We normally do not allow people to go in and put in whatever asset they want. So that's why I brought it up here. I am sorry if it is not directly
an admin.
It links
it is an admin
with,
job for sure.
With Raisa's part.
Okay, so how do we get your contact to Vio's point?
I have the LinkedIn, and it's on the, I've frequently been contacted via the, I put my email address here and my LinkedIn profile I put in here. And
we'll talk to Rohit and Chetak to, just in case they have more questions and they want to contact you.
Yeah, I'll share the credentials.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Chris, you want to ask something?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm interested in learning more about the Canary tenant.
Yes.
I do not have one set up at this given point in time. But what I'd like to understand is, are the services that I have within the other tenants available within that Canary tenant?
It's just
And then-
orchestrator for now.
Okay.
So if you create a Canary tenant, you'll have the following limitations. The region can be only Europe, and it's
Yep.
only for orchestrator. But I know that my colleagues from cloud are considering to add more. So I would be curious to know what services you'd be interested in.
Well,
to
I'd
see
like
here.
to find something that would mirror our other environments, because ultimately, I'd like to be able to try out the free trial services that you offer, or that I have
Mhm.
access to. And then I'd also like to have an environment that's somewhat separate to participate in like the insider program that's separate from,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mhm.
production path.
Your day-to-day.
Yeah.
running.
So
And what are
I,
you using now besides orchestrator?
I mean, we have Orchestrator, we have Automation Hub, we have, let's see what else we got.
Do you have document understanding a center, some AI?
No, we do
services?
not. No, we have
Okay.
access, but we do not. So I would like to be, understand, the best approach to be able to try out some of these services that won't interfere with our other, operations at this given point in time.
Yeah, for AI services, we plan later this year to offer the trial per service, let's say, in your enterprise organization in a similar way that we are doing now with insights and process mining.
Yeah, and also for the thing, so the main goal for the Canary tenant is that it gets updated faster than the rest of your environment. So on that, it would make sense to kind of mirror what you already have in your production environment. But if you just want to try out some new services that you would have access to, or you can request a trial per service, you can just add them on a separate normal tenant. It doesn't have to be necessarily a Canary one.
Okay, so you're saying just having something, a test service, or I'm sorry, a tenant
Exactly.
that
Yeah, exactly. Well, playground tenant where you can
Yeah.
you can enable and
Okay,
that will
yeah,
get the updates the same as the rest of your tenants. That's why like the Canary is more important when you're trying to mirror what you already have in production. So the changes go to that one first, and you're making sure that whatever updates are happening are not I don't know,
Breaking, let's say,
interfering
your
in
current.
breaking anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're
Okay.
not using them yet, there's nothing to break. So having it updated earlier is not necessarily helpful.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do is create additional tenants, and we have insights that we're not fully using, and integration services, automation hub.
Right, but at the same time, for insights, the power of insights is if you put it on a tenant that you already have data on, right? Because like if you put it on a
Correct.
brand new tenant, insights has nothing from where to pull the data from. So it
Yeah,
depends
precisely.
on the
That's
service.
why.
Yeah.
And I was thinking for Canary, you could try out to have a Canary only with Orchestrator, as they usually give more updates,
Yeah.
right? And to see what's new earlier, at least.
And for the things like DU or integration services, that would be very good candidates for your non-production tenants. So like dev test tenants, right? Because then you have like
Yes.
the integration service will be very useful for your developers. They can play around with it in dev. And then as they get used to it and they actually start developing automations using that one, you can also bring it in the production environments.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, one last question before we're at the hour.
Yeah, hi Alex. This is Jitin here.
Hello.
I would like to know on we are using the cloud orchestrator now, and just would like to know about the storing the logs. Like if you have the on-premise one earlier, we can get the old logs or job logs going to the database. But now as it is fully cloud, we get the logs for 30 days. But yeah, for maybe, yeah, the same come up with the point like the pop-up or an information which you can see on top, which like process retention policies. Yeah, even the same client have asked us to look into that, and you had given a documentation for that. Like there are 3 different types of policies where we can do the retention, which looks for mainly a jobs, or we can create a custom policy where we can get a log which is past 180 days. So would like to know, like, do we have any feature where we can get the logs which is past 180 days, or any other option we have?
To be honest, I'm not aware. I'm not sure if you know Vio.
I just know that we keep them for 30 days
30 days,
and
yes.
that you can download them, right? Before
You
they
can
are,
export them.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
But
option, yes,
I'm
we do
not
have it.
sure for,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think given the legal processes and all that, I don't think the orchestrator team keeps them
Yeah.
longer than this.
Okay, because we
So
have
I'm not sure
process.
what it says in the documentation, but what if you're using storage buckets to, let's say, pour your logs into a bucket, something that will store your data, let's say,
export them there.
Yeah.
But we do have logs like processing the invoices. We use like document understanding, and we do have a lot of logs which might be a lot for the storage bucket to save. And if you go on top, like you have an information over there which you can see on
Here.
top of your screen. Yeah. So this is the retention policy which UiPath had given, but yeah. So but I could not
one
get
question
like,
I have. So if you are able, so what? So if you are able to export them and store it yourself, the thing that you're looking for is the for an option to keep them in cloud for longer than this.
Yes, because we recently got an issue like which was almost 40 days back, and but we were like overlooked into that invoice, but we could not log into and get that. I have raised a UiPath ticket, and they mentioned that they can get it back with some option.
Restore
But yeah, yeah,
option,
restore
yeah.
option. Yes. UiPath have it, but like from the customer point of view, we don't have that option where we can go and get the jobs.
So you needed it for some of your automations, or it was like for your auditing purposes? Because for that you can download them, right, and have them there, but you need it. It's a functional need to keep them longer than.
Yeah, it's not the functional need, but yeah, in some cases, as you told, from the compliance point of view, if you need to look for some invoices, which I mean the solution or the robot had given an incorrect value, so to justify that,
then you have
or
to go
look
back.
Yes, right.
Some sort of troubleshooting purposes.
Troubleshooting, yes.
Okay. So I think it's the same answer as earlier. If you can leave us your contact, so we can connect you with our colleague who handled this feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Noted.
Just to update about this feature, this is Priya here. Just to update about this feature, Jitin, when you go to the automation tab and when you edit the processes, you'll get the retention policy over there. You'll get whether you want to delete it or archive it. No, just click on the okay. If you create a new process as well, and go to the next
process.
just do next
here,
and then again next. And here
okay,
you'll
so
get
here
at the bottom. Yeah, that's right. So you can define the date. Obviously, you will not be able to retrieve the older logs, but here, if you define that, for how many days you want to keep the logs, say that 90 days, 180 days, and you save it, and from from today, from next 6 months, the logs will be there in the cloud.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, here we can put it till 180 days.
Yeah,
Yes.
so basically you'll have to edit that in the processes.
Okay,
Yeah, so if you have
but
like specific, yeah, you'll need to
yeah, yes,
do it granularly. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, this is the one workaround like which we have done to just do that, but we have missed it at this thing when we have initially created the process. So now we have raised a ticket with UiPath, and UiPath told that they will be getting back the retrieve the data and give to us. But yeah, thanks for the point, Priya. So now as a workaround, we have, I mean, created the new process with the 180 days.
Yeah, and also
Mm.
to if you want the logs, because we have also faced the same issue where we wanted to retrieve the log for last 3 months, or the day that was for December. So you can go to your robot server, and from there you can get the logs for that particular day. That is also one of the workaround you can do.
So the local robot logs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can log into the your robot machine, and then you can navigate to the UiPath folder in the program files, and then you can from there you can get the logs for that particular day.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
Okay,
give
noted.
us your contacts to ask our
Yeah.
colleagues to
Okay.
contact you in case they
Sure.
need more info.
Okay, and Priya, like one more thing, as you had told, you like if you see Viorela's screen, you can see the information over there on top. Process retention policy will be applied in
Yeah.
10 days. So the
Mhm.
same message, even like we get it. Do you get the same similar message?
Yeah, yeah. This is for cloud orchestrator, right? So I think everyone
Mhm.
gets that. So even we are getting that.
Okay, so do we need to take any action on that?
Yeah, that is what I believe, that we will have to update the policy over here. I mean, the number of days, for how many days we want to keep the logs, whether we want to delete it or archive it. Archival will again go to the storage bucket.
Storage bucket,
So yeah,
yeah.
we need to define that. I mean, if you have already created the processes, then you can edit them as well. And if you're creating a new one, you can define the retention policy over here.
Okay.
But you'll
Yeah,
need to
and you're
edit them
getting that
before
message.
these 10 days.
Yeah, you get that
Yeah,
message,
so
so you're aware that this will happen, so you can take action in the time mentioned. Because
Okay.
otherwise they'll be removed. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Resa.
So I think we are on
Okay.
top of the hour. Very good discussion as well towards the end.
True.
So yeah, awesome. So thank you so much, Andy, Priya, Jitin, Chris, and everyone who asked questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and a bigger thanks to Raisa and Viorela for sharing their insights and sharing their time. We'll certainly see a lot more of them in the upcoming community activities. So the recording of the session will be shared on the YouTube community channel and also on the page in which you registered. So if you feel any of your colleagues can benefit from this, please do share it with them so that they can also maximize the benefit of this program. So thank you all. It's really good connecting with you. See you for the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Bye now.
thank you, everyone.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.